Welcome to another episode of Echoes of Anne, Youthful Voices, a podcast by the U.S. Anne Frank Youth Network. Today we are speaking with Assa, a member of the International Anne Frank Youth Network, about our theme for February, Black History Month.
So first, if you could introduce yourself for our audience.
So hello, my name is Assa. I'm from Paris, France. I'm 22 and I'm a member of AFYN since 2019. So it's been a long time right now. And now actually I'm working in the fashion field, but I'm still in a part of AFYN organization. And I travel and I met some people in US. So yeah, it's great.
That's great. So my first question is, what inspired you to get involved in the Anne Frank Youth Network, and what have you done as a part of it?
So I discovered AFYN thanks to my youth council. So they introduced to us the organization, and I was really curious because one of my brothers did the same. So I was a bit jealous and I want to do this. So I tried. And at the beginning, we are 20 people, but I'm just the only one from Paris to stay and continue to be in a part of the organization. So I'm a bit proud. And also, I have a friend, Lola, from France, but the west part, she is in the organization. So we are 2 and 3 people in France, but I hope we can be more. And AFYN is really great because it was a really good way to me to be more confident and to develop my communication skills. I did some peer guide for my high school for adult people because I started when I was 16. And it's a really good combination and opportunity to meet people from everywhere, to be more confident, to develop some skills, to learn about our history, about Second World War, because it was based off Anne Frank stories. So it was really great for me to learn a lot about history.
So part of the mission of the Youth Network states part of its goal is to promote equal rights and active citizenship and building a future free of discrimination, prejudice, and injustice. How do you see yourself acting out those values in your everyday life?
So AFYN helped me to do some action. Because I start with Anne Frank House, but I did some activities with young people to promoting how we can help people who have some problem, some discrimination, or faces racism. And I do peer guide and some workshop. And I do a lot of action in Paris, only in Paris, but I hope to do more in Amsterdam because the AFYN is from there, and maybe in the whole world. But I'm a Black girl, so for me it's really important to talk about this topic because some people are not really sensibilized about this. So for me it's a really good way to learn from people and exchange our own stories. So
That's really cool. And I think exchanging stories is one of the most powerful ways to create change, which is one of the reasons why I'm so excited to be a part of this podcast. Is a great way to showcase those experiences. So for the U.S. AFYN's theme for this month is Black History Month. And so I was just curious a little bit about if that is observed in France and how you've seen that.
So unfortunately in France it's not that big. To be honest, it don't really exist except on social media. I think it's a bit pity because France participated to slavery, colonialism, but they don't really speak about it because in France, our model is really based on not to separate people by racial or, I don't know, ethnicity, such as, I think in US you have like ID card with your race or something like that. But in France, we don't have this because it's not our values in the paper, but I think you know that in reality, when you're like a black girl, brown, whatever, you have some difficulties in life in general. And I discovered this like theme and celebration, like Black History Month, thanks to my English teacher. Actually, she's a black woman, so that's why she spoke when I was in middle school about this. But in France, it's not really, really important, and it's not a big deal to like promoting this event. So it's a bit sad, yeah.
Has Anne Frank influenced you or your understanding of racial and social justice?
Yes, because I read her journal, and because she like speak about a lot of topic that we have actually. So we saw that this topic doesn't really like involve like, how do you say that? This topic is still the same when we compare to Anne Frank periods, like in Second World War, and my own stories and periods. It's still the same. Like, yeah, like for example, slavery and segregation was like stopped, but we can see some discrimination in other way. And Anne Frank, she was really like great, and she's like a really good inspiration for me in particular, because she is really like she don't change her opinion due to like the historical context. So for me, she's like brave and courageous.
I totally agree. Slightly separate from what you were talking about with Black History Month not really being a theme, I was curious, what has been your experience with how France teaches Black history in like schools? Do they talk about it, or is it not really?
No. We spoke about Black History Month just once in middle school, and that's it. We don't have some courses like UK or USA. I think English country is more aware about this topic, but in France we don't like. It's like a taboo to talk about this. It's not our model to talk about Black History Month, so it doesn't exist.
Interesting. What role do you think young people like yourself play in keeping Black history alive and relevant in today's world? And what do you think it means that most of this is done through social media?
So I think I'm from the Gen Z, so we have access to internet and some like documentation, and also people spoke on social media such as TikTok about their own story, family story. That's why we are aware about this. And if I do an action in future, is like maybe create a media like a AFYN podcast to promoting and sensibilize people about this topic. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, it's really hard to explain because in France we don't really talk about it. And if my teacher like didn't introduce to us Black History Month, like I didn't really know what it is and the period. So yeah, I think we should more talking about this on social media with like a really specific topic and communication such as podcasts, videos, reels. Yeah.
That's interesting. kind of off of that, I was curious, how do you think that the fact that it's not really spoken about, like, in schools or, like, seems like abroad in society has affected your relationship with your identity as a Black woman?
As I said that in France, it's like, I think maybe the government is shamed to talk about this, but it's really sad because we erased a part of history, like Black people contribute to France war or history and nation. For example, during the Second World War, like Black people from Africa came to France to help French military to fight Germany. And I think as a Black woman, it's really hard to like. It's really hard because we are here, we're learning about Napoleon, Queen, King, but we don't talk about us. So I don't have like an example for growing, you know? Like, yeah, right now we have internet, but for example, for my parents, they don't have a lot of access and a lot of history. So it's like really hard to being a part of like this whole thing. Yeah.
No, I think that's really interesting. One of my questions was going to be asking you about the history of like Black French activists in getting civil rights, and about like how the U.S. audience would probably be familiar with like big names in Black liberation and civil rights movements like Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X, John Lewis, Angela Davis. But I was curious if there had been anyone that you knew their story that you would be interested in sharing.
To be honest, yeah, I know all of the people you mentioned, but in France we have Aimé Césaire, and that's it. Like, I just know like English people, Americans such as Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, but like French figure and Black, we don't really talk about it. Like for real, it's sad to say that. And yeah, I'm not really promoting France right now, but reality. Yeah, I think in US you like learn in your class the story of Malcolm X, etc. But in France we don't really talk about this. We like talking a bit about slavery and colonialism, but it's a taboo here. So yeah, I think they just like dropped this far away and closed the book, you know.
That's so interesting. I think America kind of has to talk about colonialism because we were a colony. That's how we started. But we definitely like always had to learn about civil rights, the civil rights movement. When we get to that time period, it's like we talk about it. We may not talk about it too much, but like we have to cover it. So I think at least where I went, like that was just such a thing. So it's really fascinating to hear how.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe because like the segregation has a big impact for the population in your country. I don't know.
Yes.
And really, so maybe that's why you still speaking about it, and friends don't like speak about it because we don't have this like kind of thing. But
yeah, no. That's a really interesting point. In a lot of my classes, we talk about like how like things like redlining and different forms of like putting like segregation into like a physical space still impacts the U.S. today. So do you feel like that doesn't that the histories of segregation aren't like visible in where people are living or that kind of thing today in France?
Like, if it's segregation is visible in US or in France?
In France.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's not that visible, but for example, when you want to, like, a new apartment or a new job. Some people like are doing some survey to see the difference between like a white man and woman and like a black girl or man, and we saw some differences in France. Like it's really harder for like black people, brown people, Asian people to find an apartment because of your ethnicity. But when you're like a white or or a white guy or white woman, it's more easier. So I think it's another kind of racism, and it's like hidden by the government and what we promote in the paper. Like we are all equal. In French, like we have liberté, égalité, fraternité. But in reality, we saw some like differences between people. So I think it's kind of hypocrite. So yeah, I don't know how to explain.
No, that's really interesting. Thank you. So my next question is, in your view, what are the key lessons that Anne Frank's story offers for confronting prejudice, discrimination, and hatred in our society?
So like why Anne Frank, or like the organism can...
I was thinking Anne Frank, but either way that you have an answer is great.
My answer?
Yeah.
Okay. To face about this, maybe by using some media. We saw that in history they use like cinema or song or I don't know, podcast or video to like talking about this problem and sensibilize people. So I think it's a really good way and more like funnier to like promoting by arts or problem. I don't know.
No, that's a really great
like,
answer.
For example, Jordan Peele is doing some movies about black problem, but he used like humor, so it's more funnier and more like interesting to like just say, okay, you don't have to do this, you don't have to do this, and that's it. It's more like maybe more easier to share through arts or problem. I don't know.
No, that's great. I think that's a really like true response, that people respond really well to art. Okay, this is a little bit connected to the last one, but it's also like my final question. So, what do you hope young people, especially Black youth, take away from the intersection of Anne Frank's story and the larger conversation about racial equality?
Like if Black people are in a part of AFYN, like, or...
I was thinking just like in general, if like a young Black person is like reading her diary or engaging with her legacy, like what would you hope that they take away from it?
To be honest, I don't know. I don't think that a lot of people, Black people, read Anne Frank stories, except when you are in high school and your teacher say, okay, you have to read this. But if you're not really curious, and if you are not really curious, I think they don't really like read this, because they say, okay, she's like Shirish, this is not my problem, I'm Black. Like, I think that's sad because we have the same problem. So yeah, I think we should like have like Black History Month and special months to promoting some like figures such as Anne, so that we have the same problem and we can like be together to like find some solution about it. But yeah, to be honest, I don't think that a lot of Black people read Anne Frank journal.
No, that's so fair. I feel like in the U.S., I feel like most people like haven't read her diary, but they like, I know her story, so it's okay. If there's anything else that you would want to share with the audience, you're free to say something.
So I hope that in France we have the same Black History Month like you, because it don't really exist. So I feel shame because I don't have a lot of things to say, but it's really important to share to people that in France we have Black people, but we don't celebrate our community and like our history. So it's a bit sad, and I hope our generation can change this in the future.
Today I spoke with Assa about her experiences with Black History Month and Black history in France. For more on our Black History Month campaign, or to learn more about the U.S. Anne Frank Youth Network, check out our Instagram at us.AnneFrank Youth Network. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you in the next one.